Frederick Buechner defined vocation in the following way. He said, "Vocation is the place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet." I think it can take us a long time in our lives to sort all this stuff out. In fact, I think for most of us, the discernment of vocation is a lifelong process. When we first consider what we want to be when we grow up, and again, that may be a lifelong process for many of us, we're often distracted. When I got here for my interviews, I was struck both by the tremendous beauty of Maine. You can't not be touched by that. And also by the great people I met. Maine is a state of great natural beauty. It's a vacation land for many. From our rugged coastline to the vast forests to the open potato country in the north, none of us escapes being touched by God's gifts. But equally beautiful are the people of this state and the Episcopalians who populate our churches. Well, we're a big state here in Maine, and we're separated by distance. And for the size of the state, there aren't lots of people. There's a small population. And so I think in Maine, there's a culture of mutual aid, if you will. People naturally reach out to help one another. And in our churches, I think we have not only a real sense of affinity for other Episcopal congregations, but for our neighbors. Our economy is kind of rugged here in Maine. We're resource-based, and these days nobody much wants our fish or our timber. And so most Mainers kind of put jobs together to make a living.
A voucher fund that will provide vouchers for food, for fuel oil.
Just before Christmas in 2002, Great Northern Paper, which is a major employer in central Maine, particularly in the Millinocket area, announced that it was closing, shutting down. And this was going to affect about 300 households, and by extension, everybody in the region, every small business owner, every guy who plows driveways, or every guy who sells firewood. And we, as a diocese of 67 congregations, said, okay, what are we going to do about it?
And again, that sort of mutual aid really comes through. So when the mill failed in Millinocket a number of years ago, the diocese responded with a tremendous outpouring of supplies, food, clothing, and personal contact to support the people of Millinocket. And there was a great caravan of supplies that went from Portland to Millinocket to support the people out of work.
And when we got there to the parking lot of St. Andrews, the guys from the union at Great Northern were waiting for us. And these are guys who have worked their whole lives, and they were waiting for something to do, and they helped us unload. And it was a very moving experience, especially when people started to realize these donations are from everywhere across the state, from Maine Episcopalians. And months later, we were still getting notes from people who couldn't believe that this was a statewide effort. Episcopalians in Maine care about one another.
Here I am to worship. Here I am to bow down. Here I am.
What our diocesan youth events, the retreats happening in Tech, do is allow teenagers to minister to other teenagers. At the event itself, all of the upfront talking is done by teenagers. All of the talks, all of the sermons, everything that a layperson can do in the Eucharist is done by their peers. In Maine, we don't have a diocesan convention center. That's both difficult and a real blessing, because our youth events have to happen in congregations. So we've had to really improvise. The last high school event, Teens Encounter Christ, had 90 people at it. In Maine, we don't have churches that can accommodate 90 people and still have, without use of the sanctuary.
Trinity Church Portland, one of our larger congregations, often hosts youth weekends. And not only do they host the weekend, provide the facility, sometimes cook, but they vacate the facility, including on Sunday morning, so that the whole weekend can be devoted to the youth. And then they join with the young people late in the afternoon on Sunday for their worship. That kind of generosity and support is just essential to a good youth ministry.
When the tones went, it was for the Baptist church, the little church down at the bottom of the hill. But when I rounded the corner out by the school, which is a mile and a half or so up the road, I went back on the radio and said, you know, we need some help from Mutual because it's not the Baptist church, it's St. Martin's up on top of the hill.
And I was coming down the Madawaska Road, which is the fastest way to get here, which we try to do, and still get here safely. And I heard him say it's the church on fire, and I got a big lump in my throat, and you know, my foot went from, in my mind, it went right through the floorboard and out to the front bumper, and I just wanted to get here as quick as I could.
The first place that the fire came through, it was around one of the lights in the ceiling. So I had them remove the stained glass windows. That's the first thing they did, and then start with the accoutrements so we could get most of that stuff out. Finally, when it got to a point where we pulled the crew out because it was imminent that something bad was going to happen, and just a very few minutes after that, the whole ceiling came down.
And you know, and I got here and I saw the church on fire, and I was so angry. I was angry with God because we just lost Janet McCauley in January, and how could this happen? And it was traumatic. It was very traumatic, and you know, we had a lot of people help get the stuff out of the fire, but this, you know, this was my home. This is my home.
And then I decided we need to have something tomorrow morning to make sure people understood that the Church of St. Martin's would continue despite the fire, and told several people, and at 8 o'clock following morning in the parking lot with the background of the Burton Church behind us, we did morning prayer, and we had about 21 people here.
Over the last 2 years, there's been a lengthy process of rebuilding. And St. Martin's not only rebuilt, but took the opportunity to think about what kind of church would be most useful in their community. I think in a way, St. Martin's has realized a greater vision of itself in this rebuilding process, and has firmly set itself out as a gathering place for the Palmyra community.
But the sense of community that we have in this congregation, the sense of support and love and caring for each other, just naturally goes beyond the walls. You know, there's a sense that people who come into our building to enjoy the turkey pie suppers or the other community events that we have bring their lives and their spirit into us. All of our people are out there living their lives and doing whatever they do, and the church is just a natural part of what they carry with them.
You know, the new church is sitting in a location where you can look out the window and still see the same things. And you know, for us to be here in this building today at this ministry fair, you know, it just brings tears to my eyes, and you know, it's wonderful. Janet would be happy. I'm very pleased.
But no matter, it seems to me, the fundamental task is always the same, which is to be genuinely ourselves, and genuinely responsive to the world's needs, to be joyful and responsive, to be in that place where our deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet.